The old Jacobsen 1980 Turfcat 60-inch cut. Missing some body work as it's gone through many modifications. But let's show you what the problem is right now. PTO shaft sounds like it's about to jump out of the mower. Throttle her up. Sounds like the end of the world. So I gotta replace the bushings in there. Here's the deck that I rebuilt last year. It's still in pretty good shape. Got some new blades on order. I found some new old stock blades on eBay, which is good because these are obsolete. So I'll put those on there too. So that's what we're gonna do. Okay, I'm back at it. I'm in the shop. It's about 6:30 on a Friday night. It's 102 degrees in here. It was 104 when I got here about 30 minutes ago. So it's sweltering, to say the least. So here's what we're working with. Working on the lawnmower. And issue number one is if you've looked at the video, you've seen that the PTO was acting a fool, basically. So this is the PTO pivot shaft. This is the shaft on the bottom that you see, and the PTO shaft and the bearings swing back and forth this way. So I should have set this up better. Okay, so here's what we've got. This is your PTO pivot shaft, and it rides on two frame-mounted bushing holders, basically. One here, one down here. And then up above it, you have the PTO shaft, which is connected to this pulley and runs down this way through this bearing housing and on to the drive shaft that drives the blades. There's actually 3 of these bearing housings. So the issue was these bushings in here, as you can see, they're not even in there. There was only one bushing. This is it. It's kind of wallered out. Maybe hard to tell on camera, but it's real thin on one side, and it had actually walked itself out onto the shaft back here somewhere. So this side had no bushings at all. The bushings are still intact on this side. I got 4 new bushings. I'm going to replace those. But anyway, the issue is, since there were no bushings in the shaft was free to just bounce around. And that's what all that racket was that you can hear on the video and see, actually. And so since there was no bushing, it really did a number on the end of this shaft. You can see how worn out it is. So, and it's actually, it's a little worn out on this end too. And this is actually where another bearing housing rides back here. So I'm not sure why it's worn there and not. There's a bearing housing, and then this spacer rides right there, and the bushings ride right there. It's not really worn out where the bushings are. It's worn out where this bearing housing rides. So that's a little strange. Not too terribly concerned about this end. My main concern is down here with this wear. So I got to thinking, how am I going to fix this? Well, I thought, you know, I could take it to a machine shop and they can weld this back up. And the reason I have to do this at all is because these parts are completely obsolete. You cannot get them. So, kind of on my own. So I figured a machine shop would probably weld this up, chuck it in a lathe, and then grind it back down to its original diameter, which is just 1 inch. So I was thinking, well, you know, I'm going to pay, I don't know, $100, $150, $200. I don't even know. It's not going to be cheap. That much I know. So I thought, well, what can I do? So, well, I could make my own. I have a welder, so I can weld the missing material. I can weld this back up. That's not a problem. The problem is grinding it back down to its original diameter. And yeah, you could grind it just with it sitting here, but I want it to be smooth. Because even though this shaft only pivots 90 degrees, give or take, maybe not even, probably not even that much. It's not a spinning shaft, it just pivots back and forth. When you engage and disengage the blades is the only time it moves. It does move back and forth a little bit under usage, but alas, it doesn't spin. So I was thinking, well, you know, I can weld it up, but how am I going to grind it down flat? And so I got to thinking, well, I could hook up an electric motor there, get some pillar block bearings, and then attach the pulley from the PTO shaft onto this end and spin it that way, and then just hit this with an angle grinder. Either set up a fixture to where it holds the angle grinder steady and I can just, you know, sneak up on it, or just hold it and do it by hand. So anyway, that's what I did. I procured all the necessary accoutrements today, and actually I bought a belt too, but I don't think I'm even going to use it because I can use the PTO belts that were on the mower. They should work just fine. I only need one of them. So that's what I'm going to do, is put all this together. These are 1 inch pillow block bearings. So once I clean the shaft up a little bit, I should have no problem sliding those onto the shaft to give it support at both ends, and then I'll put the pulley on, probably on one end down here, and then that'll spin it up, and that should work. I don't see why it wouldn't. For the pulley, I got the smallest one that I could find. This is a 1/4 horsepower electric motor that I bought today. I think I paid 75 bucks for it. The smallest pulley they had is just 1.5 inches. And this pulley is a little over 6 inches, so that should give me around 450 RPM, which should be fine for what I'm doing. It may even be a little fast. I don't know. I'll make it work regardless. So that's where we're at. I've still got to press off the bearings, the other 2 bearings. This is what the new bearing looks like. It goes in this bearing housing. And it's got 2 sheet metal pieces basically that hold it together. It's a pretty standard bearing. Nothing special. It's actually the same bearing that's inside the pillow blocks, but I paid more for the loose bearing than I did the pillow block bearings. And they're the same manufacturer. Different suppliers though. I bought the loose bearings first and then had to go somewhere else for the pillow blocks, and I probably could have gotten a better deal. But that's neither here nor there. Not a big deal. Here's the new bushings. So I got my work cut out for me. I've got to build a basil platen, as they say, to mount all this stuff on. And I think I may use this janky shelf that I picked from the trash years ago. I'm going to have to build it up some with some 2x4s to get the height differential between the shaft with the big pulley on it and the motor. But other than that, it should work just fine. And if it doesn't, my other option is to clear off these dirt bike pieces and just use this bench right here. It's plenty big. I don't really want to put random holes in this bench, but you know, it's for the greater good. I'll do what I gotta do. It's official. I'm gonna have to clean off some workspace. Off with the dirt bike stuff. Poof! Alakazam! Intertech. I wonder if Michael and Samir had anything to do with this. Okay, I've got it all mounted up. I just used some clamps on this end of the table, but I had to end up actually screwing everything in outboard. I hated to put extra holes in this table, but what are you gonna do? It's a necessary evil. So let's give it a shot, see what we got. Contact. Look at that bad boy spin. I must say, I think it'll do. A little run out in the pulley, but it's not the end of the world. That pulley's not actually for this shaft, and there's no keyway in it or anything, just a set screw, so no big deal. Here's the part I'm going to be touching up. Hopefully this circuit can handle my grinder and this motor running on it at the same time. And I'd really like to have this light on, but I don't know if it can handle all that. It's a lot of load. So anyway, time to get to her. Here's a tip when you're working with zip ties. When you've got everything as tight as you want, instead of just cutting the zip tie, which leaves a sharp edge which can scratch you, and that's not pleasant, just take a pair of pliers, go up to the very end, squeeze, and then just start twisting. And you twist it 4 or 5 times, and it'll break off, and leaving you a very clean and smooth cut that's not gonna grab you and make you bleed. Little something I learned years ago. So here's what I've got. I've got my angle grinder, and I just had this scrap piece of metal here, so I put it on the bottom because the idea is that I'm gonna, well, I'll show you. The idea is that I'm going to hold it against this piece of metal that I just clamped on here, and that gives me a smooth surface. So I can make sure the grinder is flat, and it'll slide relatively easily across this surface. You know, it's not perfect, but it's an inch of precision when a mile is probably required, but you know, it's better than nothing. I'm gonna be here forever. Maybe a flat wheel would be better. Whew, this is gonna take forever. Getting there. Woo! Finally. Not too shabby. Not too bad for my first attempt and having to make my own equipment. And the best part is bearing slides on. Yeximish! Okay, I had to get a little creative with my press here. I'm working on this PTO shaft for the Jacobsen lawnmower. I've got to press this bearing off of this shaft. There's 3 bearings. 1, 2, the third one down in there. So I just jacked the press up a little bit with some milk crates and a piece of wood. I'm going to give it a shot. The only issue is that this crossbar down here is right in the center line, so it kind of makes the shaft hang just a little bit wonky. But I think I'll be able to get on there good enough to get it off. So let's give it a shot and see what we got. It's hot as blazes out here, by the way. Just so everyone can see how hot it is in this oven that I call a workshop. Don't touch me, I'm sterile. Yay! Great success! So this bearing is like 37 years old. It still spins freely. It's got a little bit of side to side in it. It's probably fine, but I've come this far, I figured I may as well replace them. They're only $13.70 something a pop. Alright, here's a little update for you. Got everything, I got everything cleaned up, ready to go in. I had to put the PTO shaft, I had to put that on my little lathe and clean it up so that I can slide these bearings on once I get the shaft in the mower. It'll make it much more easy on me doing it that way. I was missing a grease fitting here in the U-joint, so I put that grease fitting in. I had to take a little file and file out all the keyways in there and there and there and the pulley. I think that's about it, so that the keys would slide in properly. I purchased the correct keys for all these components because the key here and here, they were worn out, and the key for the pulley and for that PTO shaft were both wrong and both different from one another. So, not sure what happened there. I think I may have been responsible for that one being wrong. Like 20 years ago, that shaft fell out and I put it back in a hurry, and I guess I used the wrong one. Other than that, everything's good to go. There's my weld job. Not too shabby. And I had to end up, regrinding this down because once I put the bushings in this piece here, it wouldn't slide on anymore. So I had to regrind a little bit more. So now everything works. Except for this piece. This piece bolts on the front. Actually bolts to the axle or the transaxle, whatever you want to call it. And it supports this end of the shaft. This is the end that was bouncing up and down, super loose. And it did a lot of damage. So here's a new bushing. And it just slides right through. So this tubing here has become oversized. So I've made a little drawing of what it looks like, and it's just a matter of getting a new piece of tubing, grinding off the welds here and down here, and welding a new piece in. I wouldn't do that normally, but I got no choice because this piece is no longer available, just like any of these other pieces you see here. Not a one of them. Good luck finding any of them. So once I get that done, I can put this puppy back together. This has taken me longer than I anticipated because I've never seen a shaft grow on its own, but apparently they do, because when I put these new bushings in here, I had to polish up all the ends of the shaft where they ride on because it wouldn't go on. And I think that's just because there was some damage and it warped the material a little bit, and it's no longer perfectly true. But it's true enough. It may lie a little bit, but it's true enough for us to use. You can see daylight through there. See? Completely wumpy jawed. Or slap out. Voila! Ready for the new tubing. As far as fit and finish goes, I give this part -12. Same with all the other welds on this thing. They're all janky. But they hold, so I guess that's what matters. Behold, it is here, all the way from the land of the peaches. My tubing. So now, I can just cut this to length, weld it in there, pop the bushings in, drill a hole for my grease fitting, and I'll be good to go. Booyah! On a side note, I ordered this from McMaster-Carr, and the first order, this is actually the second order, the first order, somewhere between there and here, the box broke open, and this piece of tubing fell out, and so all I got was an error message when I checked the shipping, the tracking status, and it said that they basically threw everything away. Called McMaster-Carr and they took care of it, got me another one sent out. So in the end, it all worked out, but I've never heard of that happening before. Clearly it has happened to other people before, but not to me. Alright fellers, I got it welded up. It's not my best weld ever, not my worst either. Keep in mind I did this on the ground, on my hands and knees. So, not the best setup, but it'll hold. Now I'm gonna take a grinder and clean up this face a little bit. I don't even really need to, but I'm just going to because I want to. And I'll press the bushings in, but first I have to grind a flat spot here so I can put a grease fitting in. Then I'll put the bushings in, and I'll install it on the mower, and I'll probably paint it once it's on there. Maybe. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll figure that out. Alright. Now to grind the flat spot, I think I'm just going to hold it up to the grinder. Something like this. And just, of course I'll mark it first. I know it needs to be halfway, and then basically in the middle, because each bushing is 3/4 of an inch wide, and this is 2 inches. So right in the middle should do just fine. Dunzo! You see the flat spot I ground with the grinder. And I got the alamite in there. Got the bushings installed. Now it's just a matter of putting this puppy back on the lawnmower. Yay! Alright, I've got everything mounted. Greased up. Now I'm just ready to paint it. Looking pretty good, if I do say so myself. And I actually ran it last night, and it runs smoothly. I will paint it, and I'm going to put the new blades on, and then I'll take another video of it running so you can see how much better it is.